So Michael's very passionate about architecture and its relationship to landscape, to people, and the community. Um, his dream is to have his two sons join him in his firm. And by the way, he's open for business, so call him. And he lives in town, Portland, with his wife and children, and they all walk to work and school. So please join me in welcoming Michael.
All right. So my family are multi-generation Mainers. That's Grammy Belleau overseeing a family feast at camp. That's my dad after taking us fishing in the ocean. And me playing in the Eastern Maine Class B championship game at Bangor Auditorium against Bucksport. Unfortunately, we lost, even though we beat them in the regular season. I grew up in Orono, and we lived right on Main Street. So I walked to school every day. And Orono had everything in town, the police, the fire, library, town hall. You know, it's also a university town, so that's a UMO campus on the right. So I got the Main Street experience in the quad. And it's about the same distance from my house to Pat's as it is from the library to the gym and the quad. So my first experience with great urban space was traveling in Europe and Spain and other places. But these places like the Alhambra in Granada and the Mesquite in Cordoba are really just amazing, incredible places that just pow. You know, you can't experience that without feeling like, why shouldn't everybody live like that always? I mean, it just, you know, we can do that. So when it came down to my thesis, I drew these diagrams in 1988, studying Portland, and you can see that the streets used to go right out into the ocean. Then the railroad came across, that became Commercial Street, and all that delicate fabric was lost. And in 1988, the city was separated from the waterfront by Commercial Street. 92 is a recession year. I wrote this article, Back to the Future, sort of a pep talk to the city. I talked about what an amazing pedestrian experience we had. We could strengthen this by looking at our past, present, and future. We need to reconnect across Commercial Street out into the waterfront. We should be able to walk all around the edge of the water. So we could create, you know, a string of plazas. We've got Longfellow, and we had, you know, a couple more, and we could just keep going all the way up Congress Street. And we could take those streets that were cut off and reconnect them to establish proper urban blocks and maybe put a walking marginal way around the outside. This is 92. It's a recession year. Then George Neville, the editor of the Press Herald, didn't like the picture of the new Casco Bay Bridge, which was like a highway just across. So he said, hey, send me some sketches, let's see what it could be. So I sent one I call the Ark of a Sturgeon, thinking of St. Louis, you know, a big arch. And he liked it and he stuck it up there. Then before leaving for London, still in 92, you know, the recession, I felt like if everybody loved the mall, well, why can't downtown be the opposite? So each could strengthen by just emphasizing the opposite, okay? That the mall was hermetically sealed indoor, private conditioned, shiny auto destination, and downtown could be an outdoor brick sidewalk pedestrian wonderland. So you get the idea, you know, everything downtown was historical, craft, emergent, you know, it's constantly changing and adjusting, regional, experiential. We had weather, high quality urban experiences to use to draw people in. In fact, both the mall and downtown could grow together by being opposites. Went to London, came back from London, settled in Camden, where I had my first son, 1995. In Camden, the kids it was a beautiful village. All the kids walked to school, then they went down to the bagel shop, they went over to the YMCA, all right there in town. Most people lived in town. You know, these kids could just walk. No parent had to pick up anybody, get in a car, do anything like that. And all of a sudden, I see they're building the new school 3 miles out of town. Everybody's going to have to bust everything. So Camden, you know, had the town hall again, police, fire, everything right in town. And there's the old school, and I thought the new high school should be in the old mill. It's right over water, and say, you know, I went to Camden High School. I lived in Camden. I experienced the river. That's my life. Instead of 3 miles out, they also built the Y out of town as well. Then later, I enjoyed the Camden Market in London when we lived there. And I thought, gee, Portland could use that, you know. The thriving, burbling atmosphere and the relatively new science of complexity showed us that a healthy macro system can only be achieved through a large number of very small changes. So it's those burbling small changes that create health, not the giant gesture. So instead of trying to jump from making things in your house to a storefront, commercial Congress Street is failing. If we had a street market, you could go from making things in your house to the street market, and the success there could lead, which would be a stronger financial situation for everybody. Daring Oaks, could be our Central Park, right? Both designed by Olmsted. I thought, how can we make our jewel in the middle of Portland great? First, we have to get rid of State and High cutting through, and then we could take Forest Avenue and turn it into this beautiful tree-lined boulevard. And we need to strengthen the edges, so we could make an addition on one edge of, you know, King Middle. We could create an covered outdoor sports areas for more year-round sports activity. And then along Forest Ave, we could take the old, what's still being used as the distribution center, turned into maybe a science museum and filled in those blocks, so we truly have an outdoor room. Then I wrote this sort of generic 2008 walkable neighborhoods, you know, cheerleading kind of thing. How we need to have ball fields next to the kids, so everybody isn't, you know, getting the minivan and transporting their kids miles away. And we could have each neighborhood have all its little things with it. And if we look at creating amazing urban experiences instead of just, okay, what do we got to have? We got to have a new this. Where can we find a space for it? Boom. You know, we should be thinking about, let's create these amazing experiences. And when you're in Venice, you're not thinking, oh, the post office shouldn't be here, it should be here. You're thinking, wow, I'm this incredible urban experience. And by the way, you know, there's the school and there's the museum. And if we could think in those terms, we could also target our spending a little better. This is an article on Portland waterfront where there was talk a couple of years ago about what do we do there? Well, obviously I'd done all this work, so I thought, you know, first thing we should do is, it could be mixed use. We could take the edge on Commercial Street and make Thomas blocks all the way through, you know, 4 stories high. Everybody loved that. But then the piers are actually streets, if you remember the diagrams earlier. People should come right down through and be able to walk onto the pier. Everybody should be able to walk around the waterfront, and those side buildings, you know, frame and create the fabric that we love. But finally, left is my 2013, the right is the sketches from my original 1988 thesis, mixed-use waterfront in Union Wharf. And I'm just hoping to create a more enjoyable, sustainable place here in Maine. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Michael. And I think that kind of public advocacy is really, you know, for urban planning is just amazing, and I really appreciate everything you've done and all you've written, so thank you.